In the course of working with your computer, you'll probably want or need to change some settings. Here in GNOME, there's a central spot for System Settings, and it's called System Settings. I can get to it by searching, or from the Status menu. The settings are divided into a few different sections. At the top here on my system is Wi-Fi, where I can look for and join Wi-Fi networks if I have an adapter plugged in. We'll get into this in more detail soon. Below that is Bluetooth, where I can look for and pair Bluetooth devices like a keyboard, mouse, headphones, and so on. Again, if I have a Bluetooth adapter. I can toggle Bluetooth on and off up here with a switch in the bar. We'll take a look at this later. The next option here is to change the background. I can change the image that displays as the surface of my desktop and the image that shows up on the lock screen. There's a variety of images that come with Ubuntu. This one with the spices looks interesting, and when I confirm my choice, the desktop background changes. I can also choose a photo from the Pictures folder in my Home folder if there's anything there, or I can choose a solid color instead of a photo. If I scroll down to the bottom here, notice the little white highlight that comes up, indicating the end of a list. I'll choose this nice medium blue color. The next option in my list is the dock. Remember, that's the launcher bar along the side of the screen where my favorites are. I can set it to auto hide when a window overlaps it. See how that works? I'll leave that off for now. I can also change the size of icons and change where the dock is, on the left, the right, or at the bottom. The Notifications section lets you configure whether apps are allowed to pop up a notification on the screen when they want to share some information with you. Pop-ups here controls that, and you can also set whether you want them to appear on the lock screen. And below that, you can control whether individual apps are able to send notifications, if you want to use more granular control. Under Search, I can choose which of these items will appear in the search interface, and change the order in which they appear as well. Region and language let me change the language and display settings for my system. Whatever language you installed with will be selected here, and you can also add more languages and configure the format of dates, times, and numbers. And you can add input sources as well. If you change these options, you'll need to restart your session in order for them to take effect. Universal Access lets you change settings to increase the accessibility of different parts of the desktop, including changing the text size, configuring zoom, adding visual alerts in addition to audio alerts, and more. While a lot of these options are designed to improve the experience for people with particular difficulties, some of them can be helpful for users that don't necessarily need them as well. For quicker access to these settings, you can enable the Universal Access menu, which puts these options up here in the top bar. The Online Accounts section lets you add credentials for various online services, which allows apps to use your information to configure things like email, sharing with social networks, and so on. Privacy allows you to control some aspects of how the system behaves with regard to privacy. You can choose whether to allow location services to know where you are, and whether to automatically report problems that occur. Be sure to explore these settings if you're privacy conscious, and configure them to meet your needs. Sharing lets you change the name of your computer and enable and disable the sharing capabilities. Sound controls the audio hardware and profile of the system. You can set the overall system volume and choose input and output devices. You can set the alert volume and the alert sound, which is the noise that happens when a dialog pops up. I like to turn these off entirely. You can preview some sounds and choose what you'd like to have happen. The Applications tab shows whether an app is currently playing or recording audio. Power shows the battery charge information if you're on a laptop, and lets you choose when and whether to blank the screen after a while, and provides some other power options. Network allows you to configure settings for the Ethernet adapter, and like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, we'll take a look at this area in depth in a little bit. Devices shows information about hardware connected to your system. I'll click into it here, and it changes the sidebar to a list of hardware types. I don't have a lot of interesting hardware connected to this virtual machine, but click around on your system and see what's there. You can add a printer here in the Printers area, and you can choose what to do with different kinds of removable media. Keyboard is a helpful area because you can set keyboard shortcuts for all kinds of time-saving actions. And Displays lets you change the orientation and resolution of the screen, and lets you turn on Nightlight, which changes the color cast of the screen to make it more suitable for use before bedtime. I'll click back in the top left and go to the primary window. The last section here is Details, where I can find out some information about the system itself. I'll click it, and the first section within Details is About, where I see the distribution and my system info. Here's the amount of memory that the system has, its processor, and information about the version of GNOME, what type of OS this is, and some virtualization information. I can also see how big the hard drive is. In the date and time setting, I can select whether the system automatically sets its own clock. That's a good idea, but it does require internet access. So if you're working without internet at all, you'll need to set the clock manually. You can change the time zone and how the time is formatted. Users we'll take a look at later on. That's where you can control what user accounts there are on the system. And Default Applications is where you can set what application is the primary one for certain kinds of activities. There's a lot of options here in the Settings app, so take some time to look around and familiarize yourself with the settings. When you need to change part of how your system works, this is a good place to start.